Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for this first great talk. You will probably recognize a lot that you've already heard in this talk. Yeah, and what I want to talk about today is especially about waiting time. I mean, everybody of us hates waiting time. Waiting is somehow something we want to avoid. And what I want to talk about today is how we at Delivery Hero, who we are, I will just explain next, but how we basically address time delays and how we try to avoid them, try to avoid waiting time. Yeah, but who are we? What is Delivery Hero? Delivery Hero might not be known to a lot of people because actually Delivery Hero is kind of an umbrella brand. And under this umbrella brand, basically we have a lot of like local companies. And to show you, so we are active in over 70 countries and we have 11 brands. I'll show you in a minute which ones and you might recognize them. Yeah, we have about, I think this is an old statistic, but now we are about like 5,000 people here in the Berlin headquarters, and we are basically providing all the technical services about the routing and all the order flow, how the people order food from a restaurant and how they can get it. Yeah, yeah, we apply or employ more than 1.4 million riders, which are the couriers all over the world, more than 1.3 million restaurants. And yeah, in 42 countries, we have quick commerce. Quick commerce, you might know, this is when you order groceries, and you remember maybe Gorillas, who had this crazy idea here in Germany. You order something, you get it within 10 minutes. You basically also get the order, but not maybe within 10 minutes with us, because it's kind of like really hard to do, to be honest. But yeah, so these are our brands. I don't know, maybe some of you have, does anybody come from a country where they know this brand, one of them? Okay, that's a lot. I mean, maybe you just quickly shout which one. Perfect. Got that. Very good. Yeah, so these are all our brands all over the world. Actually, my favorite one here is missing because we removed it. Was from Austria. It was called Miam, which is in German somehow an expression for something is yummy. It's now called Fodora, but yeah, my colleagues all call it M-Jam, which is also kind of a cool name. But yeah, and just one last picture before we then actually start. So these are our biggest brands, basically. So Woowas actually makes 1/3 of our business, and this is only in South Korea. So South Korea is kind of crazy with food ordering. Basically, their cooking is something that you only do on Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas. But basically everything is ordered. You order everything, like food, groceries, everything. So this is why it makes 1/3 of our whole business, only one country. But also, yeah, we have big business in other areas of the world, as you can see here. And yeah, but we are not actually active in Germany, which is kind of funny. So it's a German company, but we don't have any business here. But yeah. Okay, what is our vision? Always delivering an amazing experience, fast, easy, and to your door. All right, that was the commercial part, to kind of give you an introduction what we are. And I want to talk about one of the specific vehicle routing problems, and it's the vehicle routing problem with pickup and delivery. Yeah, and what is this? To give you like a small example. So we have here in this picture, we have 2 riders with the 2 bicycles here, and we have 3 orders, right? And every order consists of a pickup and a delivery. So the pickup here are the restaurants in the corresponding colors, and the customers, they want to get delivered the food, are here with these with the fork and the knife with the corresponding color. And what we have to do now is basically find routes to transport the food from the vendors or restaurants to the customers as soon as possible. And we will here, for the sake of understandability, we just look at, we want to minimize the sum of all delivery times. This is always the goal here. Yeah. So we have the street map here. We know how long it takes to travel over an arc. And one possible solution would be this here. Yeah, for example, the rider here on the left, yeah, he picks up the food at the green restaurant and delivers it to a green customer, which takes 20 minutes, as we can see. Then we have the other rider who picks up the blue food, delivers the blue food, picks up the yellow food, and delivers the yellow food. And in total, the total delivery time, if you sum up all these times here, is 65 minutes. Yeah. Another possibility would be this route here. In the end, this gives us a solution of 75 minutes if you calculate it. But here's something I want to point out. So some very important feature that we are having, or that we also sometimes optimize for, is the so-called stacking. Stacking means that we have 2 orders in the back, or more orders at the back at the same time. So here you can see the rider on the left picks up the yellow food and the green food. So we have 2 orders in the back, and then we go to deliver it. Why is this important? Actually, this is cheaper for us to deliver. So usually if you assign a rider a stack, you pay less money for the delivery. So this is something you want to optimize for. On the other hand, of course, you can imagine it takes more time. So for example, yeah, the green order, you know, like you have to go this detour via the yellow house. And of course, in the end, you also want to avoid losing the quality of the food. So it's always a kind of a trade-off, but it's an interesting part, the stacking. Okay, but this is not all. I mean, we actually solved the vehicle routing problem with pickup and delivery, and we have time windows. And where do these time windows come from? Well, if you order food, of course, the food has to be cooked, right? That means even if your rider is exactly at the restaurant, you would have to wait until the food is ready, right? So here, for example, we have the yellow food is already ready, so this is fine. But for the green food, for example, preparation time takes 15 minutes, and for the blue food, it's 10 minutes. And if we look at the first example route that we had, what happens here is the rider on the left goes to the restaurant in 5 minutes, but he has to wait there for 10 minutes because the food is only ready in 15, and then he goes on. And on the other hand, on the other side, you also see there's no, we are lucky, now that there's 5 minutes of waiting time at the blue restaurant. So the total delivery time in the end is here actually 85 minutes. Yeah. And here, for example, the stacking would work better. So by doing this detour, right, we are actually avoiding all waiting times. And by doing this, in the end, we end up with a better solution in total. Yeah, we only have to still this 5 minutes at the blue restaurant, but the stacking here actually helps us. Yeah. Okay. And now, so this is, I hope this is kind of clear. It's quite easy problem to understand. And it's also nice to work on it, but it's a very, very hard problem. As we already heard, it's really hard to solve this. And now it's story time. Yeah. And yeah, what I want to tell you is once upon a time in South America, it's really not clear which country. I tried to find people, but a lot of people left the company already. But there was a certain case that some random dude ordered a bolognese at 10 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. 10 a.m. in the morning, of course, the kitchen just started to cook. And I don't know if Italian people are here, but a good bolognese takes, I think, even hours, right? So for my example here, let's assume that a bolognese takes 45 minutes. You know, as I said, some Italian mamas probably would kill me for this, but for this example, I think it's good, right? So let's have the following situation here. We have the vendor that cooks the bolognese. It takes 45 minutes, and delivery, the time to go to the customer is 15 minutes. And we have a rider that takes 15 minutes to go to the restaurant. So if we assign this rider now to go to the restaurant, what would happen? We have 30 minutes of waiting time. And as I said, waiting time is something that we want to avoid. The riders hate waiting time because usually they get paid per order. And when they are waiting, they have the feeling, and not only the feeling, but they lose time where they could do other orders, so they cannot earn any money. Yeah. Vendors don't like it because these people are standing there around, and a lot of them claim it's not good for business if you have like these delivery people standing in a restaurant, and the usual customers that want to walk in, they are kind of, yeah, it's not attractive. Let me say it like this. And I don't like it, or my colleagues like it, because we don't have the possibility to redispatch. What does it mean? I mean, we always get orders over time, like new information is revealed over time. And of course, then we always would have the possibility to assign something else. So a new order pops up, it's actually better for this rider, so we assign this rider. But the problem is, when you assign a rider to an order and he's waiting at the restaurant, we cannot take this back, right? And while he's waiting, we cannot do anything else with him. So kind of similar to what the riders feel, they don't make any more money. And for us, it's also bad. We lose flexibility. And so waiting time is bad, right? It's a lose-lose-lose situation. So how can we solve this problem? One idea was introduce a constraint. So basically, we provide any assignments of a rider to an order if the waiting time is too high. So like this, yeah. But what is the problem here? It might be that we are very stressed and there's only one other rider basically available, but it takes 35 minutes for him to go there. So it's quite nice because the waiting time is only 10 minutes. But I mean, you know, we have to send this rider for 35 minutes, and also it's not really efficient to do this, right? Because he or she could probably do some other jobs in wherever he or she is in the city, right? So this actually turned out to be not a good idea. A better idea is just notify the rider later. So basically we keep this assignment in mind, but we don't send the rider just yet, okay? So it would look like this. It's, let's say 10 a.m., yeah, 45 minutes. So we don't assign him at 10:10, we don't assign, but we assign him then at 10:20 because we believe 10 minutes of waiting time is somewhat okay, yeah? And this looks like a good solution, right? Problem is solved. So we just
to block him before, so he doesn't get any other jobs, so he's still available.
Exactly, yeah, he doesn't get any jobs, so he's idle. As I said, it doesn't really solve the problem for the rider, so the rider still cannot make any money, to be honest. But the good news, and this is, I mean, why I like it, we have the possibility, if something else would come up, like another order that he could do in between, we could just send him there and let it do it in between. So for him, it would also be good. So, I mean, everybody would win. But yeah, actually, he remains idle, yeah. Okay, but the problem is solved now, right? No, actually not. And now this is where reality strikes back. This is how I call it. This is something I learned from Thorsten during my PhD. You know, you can optimize as good as you want. In reality, it's always a little bit different, right? So one problem that we are facing sometimes are unreliable vendors, right? The vendors say the bolognese will be, for example, ready in 45 minutes. And then we send the vendor, usually they have a machine, and then a piece of paper comes out of it telling you, in 45 minutes, I need a bolognese. Yes. But, you know, the vendor is not always looking at his machines, or they don't want to look at it or whatever. So some vendors, we're waiting to assign, but the preparation time doesn't go down because some vendors only start preparing the food when the rider has arrived. Yeah. So actually we waited 20 minutes. We sent the rider. The waiting time is still 30 minutes, right? Because, yeah, I don't know. Because the vendor only, he needs this pressure of a person standing there. So actually we did investigations. The vendors or restaurants tend to cook faster when a rider is standing in front of a restaurant, right? Pressure. In a sense. I mean, we don't want this, right? And we don't want to exploit this fact, but it's just natural course, right? So this is a problem. We have some of these vendors, and how do we find out if this is such a vendor? Because if you know this is such a vendor that needs this pressure, you would always send the rider immediately to make this pressure, right? So he starts preparing the food. But how do we find out which vendors are reliable or not? Yeah, and we do this by an introduction of a state-of-the-art, cutting-edge machine learning approach to determine the reliability of a vendor with respect to food preparation times. In the end, we just plot some data. Yeah. So what you can see here, is basically the time when the rider arrives. So this is the time when the food is supposed to be ready. Here's when the rider arrives. So sometimes a little bit before the time, sometimes a little bit behind the time. And this is the time that the rider then has to spend at the vendor. And what you can see here, I mean, it goes down a little bit, but imagine the line usually like this is kind of a linear regression, I think. The line would be like this. So basically, it doesn't matter when you arrive. You arrive before the time or after the time. You always have to wait the same amount of time at the vendor. So this way, if we see such a curve here, this way we can identify a vendor that is not reliable. Yeah, and for these cases, we would always send the rider immediately to make this pressure. On the other hand, if you want to see a nice vendor or a good vendor in a sense, we see this here. We have something that we call an elbow curve, right? So here the food is all, so 1 minute is basically really the time that you need to put something in your bag, basically, so you cannot go below. And we can see here, when we arrive after the point in time at 0, we can always directly put the food in the bag, the food is ready. And we see here when we come earlier, I mean, then we have to wait. It's kind of clear. And we see this nice curve. So this is what we call reliable vendor. So here we could really just send him, for example, just in time. So we could really delay the notification. Yeah. So this is a good vendor. And here, this is also somehow a good vendor. So we still have an elbow. The elbow is a little bit, like not that sharp up. But the problem that you can see here, all these points are widely distributed, right? So we have this estimation, and we have this curve, and we would now say, yeah, it looks like a good vendor. But yeah, these points are really, really spread out, right? And what would you do here? Like, do we send the rider now? Do we wait for sending the rider? What do we do? And in this case, what we actually do now is, if you consider the preparation time as a kind of like normal distribution, right? What we are looking at then is actually the variance, right? So you have these 3 curves here, yeah? And let's assume these are the preparation times, right? So if you, for example, if you would have a vendor where you have this distribution as the red curve, yeah, the variance is somewhat small. So we kind of believe this is a good vendor, so we can, or a reliable vendor, so we can send the rider just in time. But if you have, for example, this green curve, so basically, yeah, the preparation time is somewhat really random. In that case, it's probably an unreliable vendor still, even if we have this good regression curve there. And then we would actually send him always immediately. So this is how we solve this problem. And now the overall problem is solved, right? So we know how to deal with reliable, unreliable vendors. There are some other players that we have to consider, right? And this is the riders. The riders are usually, they are on a contractual basis and they are paid per job. But the riders, what they could do is we wait, it's 10, 10, 10, 10, 20, and then we assign the rider. But what can the rider do? He can reject orders. Riders can also say if they don't like, for example, many times riders, for example, don't like to go into certain areas of a city because it's maybe dangerous or they don't like it, or whatever reason they have. I will come to this in a minute. They can reject this. And I mean, this is bad for us because the vendor already started to prepare the food, right? And the customer is waiting for their food. And now the rider declines. So we wasted 20 minutes. And now we have to take another rider. We have this other rider 35 minutes away. And now we actually come too late. So the food is ready. Food is getting cold. Delivery time is longer. So when riders rejecting orders is actually something bad for a planning process, because it kind of, completely destroys your plan that you're making. So what are possible solutions here? We could pay them more money. But in the end, something is that at some point, the problem is that doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? I mean, it would work. The riders would earn more money, but they learn this. So in a sense, they realize I reject the order and then I get a better offer, right? So basically, they would always decline the order, hoping that they would get a better offer. And if they don't get a better offer, they get another job. So actually we tried this and it didn't work out. And so, okay, what did we do in the end? Well, let's go to the root cause. Let's try to determine the reasons why riders decline the orders. Yeah, and try to avoid this when we optimize, when we create the routes, when we optimize. And then we did some investigation, and it's quite interesting, but also quite natural. So when do riders refuse orders? Yeah, so usually riders work in shifts. So let's say they work for 4 hours. And what they sometimes do or usually do is, as you can see here, for 75% of the orders, the reasons are either I'm 20 minutes to my shift end. So, you know, I want to, in German you say Feierabend. I mean, I want to end my working day, and, you know, I don't want to go to another job where maybe delayed and whatever, right? So either they refuse the jobs in the last 20 minutes, yeah, or they are further away than 5 kilometers from their starting point, meaning they are going out of their known area and they don't want this, or the combination of the two, right? They are far away and it's 20 minutes to the shift end, yeah? So what are we going to do, or what are we working on now? Basically, what we will do now in the future is, when creating the riders' routes, we will try in the end to bring them back to their starting point, yeah, or some other point they want to desire. So we create the routes, and in the last, let's say, hour of their shift, we try to create the routes such that they end up closer to their home. And this way, we hope, and it's probably very likely, that they, you know, like they don't decline less orders in the future, right? Okay, but now the problem is solved, right? I would say yes, but actually it's not really. Everything I showed you so far was for one order, right? But I told you, the stacks play an important and crucial role in our planning. And for stacks, especially when you have, for example, 2 different restaurants involved, right? Everything gets more complicated. I mean, what do you do if the one vendor is reliable, the other is not reliable, or some mix in between, right? What if the variance for the one prep time is high, for the other one is small? And this is really hard to kind of like optimize for. I mean, there we need better ideas, and yeah, so this is something also we are working on. So it doesn't get boring, and also there must be a reason why I get paid for this, right? So so the saga continues. And yeah, what is the moral of the story? As I said, so in my words, you can optimize as good as you want, right? Reality always strikes back. Or to say, sometimes you are forced to conduct state-of-the-art, cutting-edge research using optimization and machine learning techniques to solve real-life problems just because some random dude ordered a bolognese in the morning at 10 a.m. This is how it all started. And yeah, thank you for your attention.